Okay, on this problem, we're given the equation of a second degree function in screwed up form. It's not in our standard form. It's y equals negative 2x squared plus 4x minus 1. Now we know this is going to graph as a parabola either up or down, but we don't know the details yet because we have to get it into standard form first. We're asked to find the vertex hk, the axis, which is the vertical line that cuts the parabola in half. It's the equation x equals h. The y and the x and y intercepts, and the direction of the opening up or down, and do the sketch. So here is our solution. First, we're going to get standard form of this equation, so let's complete the square. I'll run through the steps with you verbally as we do them. First, isolate the x's in parentheses. Anything that contains x gets a parenthesis. Plus 1. So all the x's are inside of the parenthesis. Now factor out the coefficient that's multiplying x squared, and be careful, you have to factor it out of both terms in that parenthesis, not just the first one, plus the 1. Now inside the bracket, we're going to add and subtract bracket 1/2 times negative 2 close bracket squared. In other words, half the coefficient of the x term, not the x squared term, but half the coefficient that's multiplying the x term, and then square it on the outside. Add that and subtract it. And don't forget to bring down your plus 1. Now we're going to simplify inside the brackets only. Negative 2 times x squared minus 2x times, well, what's 1/2 of negative 2? It's negative 1. We still have the squares on the outside. Okay, now we're going to carefully pull the subtracted bracket squared term to the back outside of the parenthesis. And when we do that, we have to bring along a factor of negative 2 from the front. So it's plus a negative 2 times the negative bracket squared term, and then your plus 1. Okay, I know this looks strange, but let's go ahead and simplify it. It probably would have been easier if I had skipped that step and just written this step. Y equals negative 2, parenthesis x squared minus 2x plus bracket squared, plus a negative 2 times a negative bracket is a positive 2 times the bracket. And then bring down your plus 1. Okay, now we're going to factor the stuff in the parentheses using the formula, which I don't even write here, but you can see it in your notes. It's x minus 1 squared. So we've got negative 2 times x minus 1 squared plus 2, which is a result of 2 times 1, plus the 1 at the end. And that makes 3 at the end. Okay, so this is of the form y equals a times x minus h squared plus k. Comparing those, we see the a value is negative, which means it is a negative number, and that implies a sad face, an upside down parabola. The vertex hk is the ordered pair. H is a number being subtracted from x, it's positive 1. K is a number added at the end, it's positive 3. So we've got this thing opening down, we've got the vertex 1, 3. Now we'll find the x-intercept. We find the x-intercept by writing our equation, y equals negative 2 times x minus 1 squared plus 3, and we let y be 0. Y will always be 0 for the x-intercept. Now we're going to solve for x. We're going to turn this thing backwards and move 3 to the other side by subtracting. And then we're going to divide both sides by negative 2. We get positive 3/2 on the other side. And then x plus 1 is equal to, x minus 1 is equal to plus or minus the square root of the other side. So we've got 1 plus or minus the square root of 3/2. Well, people like to simplify that because you actually have a radical in the denominator here. It's 1 plus or minus square root of 3 over square root of 2. How do you get rid of the radical in the bottom? You multiply by the radical of the bottom over itself. That gives you 1 plus or minus the square root of 3 times 2, which will be 6, square root of 6, over 2. So you see our answer, second answer, is the same as the first answer. This 1 plus or minus the square root of 3/2 is the same as 1 plus or minus the square root of 6 over 2. So our x-intercept is the ordered pairs 1 plus or minus the square root of 6 over the 2, comma, 0. There are two ordered pairs there, one with a plus and one with a minus. The y-intercept is found by taking the same equation and letting x equal 0, solving for y. Negative 2 times negative 1 squared plus 3 equals negative 2 plus 3, which is 1. So y-intercept will be 0, comma, 1. And finally, we can do the sketch. We've got everything we need. Let's make it clear. We found the axis. We found the axis, that vertical line, x equals h, but we need to say something about that. Anyway, back to the graph. let's graph the vertex. One on the x-axis, three on the y-axis, and we have our y-intercept that this thing passes through. And our axis of symmetry will be found. Oh, here's the y-intercept. 1 plus the square root of 6 over 2, comma 0. And the other one on the x-axis, 1 minus the square root of 6 over 2, 0. And of course the y-axis, 0, 1. Up here I'm writing the axis equation. X equals h, which is 1. So x is equal to 1. Let's draw that in our graph. Dot, 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 dot. That's x equals 1. It cuts the parabola in half. And that is our picture. Now, if that was too fast, go back and rewind it and play it slowly.